So we've got a little update here. You may have seen my last video in which I showed you how I found some baby fry in my pond, and just wanted to give you a kind of recap on what happened there. So I was cleaning out the pond basically, and I've got this floating basket that I just happened to put in only that winter, and then I found some fry floating around in there. All the rest had obviously been eaten by the bigger goldfish. So what did I do? I thought, well, I'll just whack it in a bucket along with some watercress, and hopefully they would survive. Yeah, so that's the thumbnail you might have seen on the other video. Basically just decided to pop them in a bucket, and I was really kind of excited about seeing how they turned out. I've never raised any fish before from fry, and I thought it would be a good thing to document, sort of see how they turn out, what they end up looking like. They're the parent fish. No idea who they're from. I've got a mixture of males and females in there, and at the time there was ranchu and Joaquin goldfish all in this outside DIY pond. I've got another video where it's showing me where I put that together as well. So that is the end of the flashback. I thought I'd just update anyone who hadn't potentially seen that. So what did I do now? Well, I started to think about how could I feed them, and as I was feeding them so many different foods, I was trying some frozen foods, some pellets, everything like that. Really, I was polluting the water quite a lot doing that. I even ended up I read online somewhere that you can boil eggs. So I boiled some eggs and took out the yolk from the middle. That seemed quite popular actually, or quite they really liked that when they were really young. So that helped. So I did sometimes just when I was doing a water change on the bucket, separate them and see whether it was a bit easier to see whether they were taking the food. I mean, that didn't always work too well, because I think they were a bit shocked that I'd put them in this tiny pot, but they did take the food. You know, there's not much growth there that you can see from the last video, but we can see they are potentially trying to get that food a little bit. I had a couple. There was 2 fry in total, so it was interesting to see what they both ended up looking like. Now, in order to do a water change, literally what I would do is I'd end up taking out all of the plants, and I would keep them to the side, because I noticed that living on the plants was lots of things like mosquito larvae, potentially even some algae that the fish were managing to eat and was helping them. But you could just see the water there, how kind of disgusting the water basically becomes after me feeding them so much. So one thing that I knew that was really important was going to be to change this water. As I said, it gets disgusting so quickly, the amount I'm feeding them. Because really I didn't know what to feed them, so I made sure I fed quite a lot, but just changed the water every day. So what I'd do is I'd separate them into these small cups, and you can see a close-up there of one of them. You can tell already they're just single-tailed, kind of common-looking goldfish. They're not going to be anything like the goldfish that I keep, the ranchu or the Joaquin goldfish. But the idea generally was to separate them into a couple of tubs. I would literally throw away the water, put some new stuff in there so I could clean it out slightly, throw that on the grass and fill it back up again. And 100% water change, I was doing that probably once every other day. To start with, once every day, then once every other day after that. I'd really carefully put them back in. I was slightly worried about how wanted to be more gentle with them, to see, that would help them survive. And that was it really. Sort of, you can see them back in the bucket now, swimming around happily. So that went on for a week or so, and I'd make sure I kept on top of that. I knew from the small amount I've read so far that is a really good way to make sure that these are going to survive. You can see there some of the life that was in the pond, that just swimming around. Way too big for the fish to eat, but that did make me think there is some other life in there as well, where it wouldn't be too big and the fish could kind of attack it. So after them living in the bucket for around a week, I guess, I would then had a slight upgrade, and that upgrade was a tub. Now the reason I went for this, was really just so I could try and start to view them from the side. I wanted to see how they were developing, and I was fed up of looking at them really from the top down. Still on the shed floor, and I did put a little aeration in there for them to try and help out. This is my failed attempt at brine shrimps. So what I did was this time set up a couple, and fingers crossed they will work this time. I know from some comments that they would need some light, so that was something. This was shot before those comments were actually read on the last video, but thanks for your help, everyone who commented. So 10 days after, I decided the temperature was getting too cold outside. I'll bring them in, and partner wasn't too pleased, but they ended up on the dining room table. And I was keeping up with those water changes, but maybe not as regularly now, every 3 days potentially. But this meant I could view them from the side. And at this point as well, I did start to try really a bit more crushed pellet. It was just the Hikari Aranda, I believe it was, the floating pellet. So I would crush that as fine as I could, and it would really pollute the water, but I did see them starting to go for it. So it's quite hard to see in this shot here. I think I'll get another better one in the middle in a minute, but it would sort of stay at the surface of the water, and sometimes it would float down, they would grab it. So that's kind of where we are, I guess, in terms of the pond so far. This is the pond, the fish themselves outside, we're still swimming around, still feeding at this point. This is a month or so ago now in terms of real time when this video is released. But I just think it's going to be really interesting to see which fish these come from. The fish I'm hoping to breed for in the summer is the large, kind of, I'd call a reverse tancho, just swimming off to the left-hand side now, a Joaquin goldfish, and actually that male that's just on the very left now as well. You can see how much more red they are than the other fish. They're the ones I want to breed from, and also the ranchu as well. But these might not be from those fish. They are single tails. It's just a chance for me to practice. So instead of doing full 100% water changes, I did try a technique that I saw online, which was just getting a small bit of airline tubing and siphoning out most of the rubbish from the floor. Here's a little update. So 12 days now since I found them. I'm having to do the timeline from when I found them because I don't know how old they are. But you can see they have put on some size there. Got the pond in the background. And there's the other one. So they're definitely putting on some size. Whatever I'm doing is working. So I sort of just carried on with that, feeding the whole concoction of food. But at this point, potentially a bit more pellet. So a little bit of a move again. This time they ended up on the kitchen side. I decided that with the LED lights under the kitchen work cupboards, I hoped that would help them to see the food floating on the surface above. So when I drop the food in like this, you can see how much is in there. But the idea was that hopefully they would grab the food, and it did work. I think they were eating a bit more. It's kind of hard to tell because I couldn't sit there and watch them the whole time. I did watch them quite a bit, trying to figure out everything that's going on. But you can see here, as the pellet starts to fall, potentially the fish grabs some food. It also comes to the surface sometimes. And having all that plant in there really did help as well. It helped them. There's a lot of traffic going through the kitchen. It helped them feel a bit more secure. Yeah, so they're coming on. They're still there. 15 days after finding the fry now. You can see they've grown a bit more. You can see inside them, which I thought was pretty cool. I've never seen fry grow before, but I actually started to notice at this point there was a couple of different colours coming on. You can see how one of them's much more of a pink colour. This one that's on the screen now, it appeared that to me. It's definitely a bit lighter. But anyway, that's just something I observed in those first kind of 15 days after finding. You I carried on feeding. It was twice a day. I'd feed these pellets, or the crushed pellets, and they were really high protein, the Hikari. I knew that was really good for them. Anything that's high protein is what I knew would help. You can see they're actually going for a piece. They've got a big piece as well. And then I just made sure I did observe them and make sure they're eating what I put in. I started to do a lot less frozen food here and just pellets. But you can see the difference between the two colours. You can see how the one on the right appears a bit more bronzy, and the one on the left is kind of pinky. I'm thinking it could be coming from one of my calico fish. I've got some calico female and calico male, so literally, but as well as the metallic, we've got the reds. So it's really hard to tell, to be honest, at this stage. Maybe someone in the comments could point it out to me before what I'm noticing there, the difference between the two colours. But definitely a lot of feeding going on, which was really nice to see. It made me hopeful that I hoped that I'd got through that kind of early stage, that first stage, where things could go really wrong. I was being really careful, transferring the fry from bucket, to the pots. And at this point, I'm hoping, you could see those colours there. I wanted to freeze that at that point. So there is really a clear difference there. And I know that potentially one of them, I'm thinking it could end up being a metallic, that one there. And then the other two, either of those, I'm not sure. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, that's the kind of position they're at this point. I thought I'd give a little update. If you do fancy following along, feel free to subscribe. It helps me to think I'm going to make some more videos. So I always appreciate that. Anyway, thanks for watching.